All right, diving in. You've sent over some really fascinating stuff for us to dig into today, all about movement, finding that sense of balance, and how to dodge those pesky injuries.
It's a pretty amazing collection, right? You've got
Yeah.
everything from how our bodies are designed to move in the most efficient way to things people tend to forget, like warming up and cooling down
Yeah,
properly.
totally. And even like the psychology of starting an exercise program, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole mindset piece.
And going through it all, some really clear themes jump out. There's that whole idea of integrated moving in all directions, which is like the foundation for good balance and avoiding injuries.
Yeah, multi-directional movement, it's huge.
Right. And then this really important point that a one-size-fits-all approach just isn't going to cut it. Everyone starts from a different place.
Completely. And that's where personalized approaches come in.
Yeah,
Understanding your own body.
exactly. We've also got the impact of warm-ups and cool-downs, which I think a lot of people kind of brush over.
It's so true. Those bookends are essential.
And this really cool approach of starting a movement journey with activities that actually make you happy.
Totally. Finding the joy in movement. That's how you stay consistent.
Oh, and then this concept of schema, which sounds super interesting, like a secret weapon for your body, how we actually learn to move.
It is like building a map in your brain for movement. It's fascinating stuff.
So our mission, if you will, is to take all these pieces, all these ideas, and put them together into something clear and practical. How to move well, not just to tick off exercises, but to really feel better in your body.
Absolutely. We're aiming for that holistic understanding of movement, how it connects to your overall health and well-being.
Okay, so let's get into it. Right off the bat, one of the sources, it lays out this really interesting premise for building a movement program, and it really resonated with this whole idea of integrated movement.
Oh, yeah, that one. So it was all about, incorporating multi-directional movement, making sure you're using both sides of your body together, that cross-lateral stuff, and paying attention to how you're breathing while you move and how it all fits together.
And this just totally makes sense, moving in more than just straight lines, like forward and backward. It just seems so intuitive for balance.
And the research backs it up, especially as we age. Those studies show that kind of movement trains your body to handle those unexpected stumbles, those shifts that can lead to falls.
It's like real world preparation.
Right, exactly. And that cross-lateral movement, like think about how your arm swings when you walk or reaching across your body.
Like reaching for something on a shelf.
Exactly. It's not just about physical coordination, but it actually gets both sides of your brain firing together. And that can be really beneficial for cognitive function too.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So it's not just physical, it's mental too. I like that. And the breathing component, the functional breathing part, how does that tie in?
That's so fundamental. When you connect your breath to your movement in a conscious way, you're essentially creating this really strong core.
Okay, so it's not just about sucking in air.
No, not at all. Think of it like this. When you take a deep breath and engage those core muscles, you're building this super stable base for everything else your body does.
So it's like a foundation, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about getting oxygen into your lungs, It's about control, stability, and actually powering your movements efficiently.
So it's about integrating your breath with your movements for maximum power and stability.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, now another source you sent over made this really crucial point, and I think it kind of sets the stage for a lot of what we'll talk about today. We can't just assume that everyone's at the same level when it comes to balance and movement skills, right?
Oh, this is so important. It's like, can standardized programs really work for everybody? Because in reality, people come to movement with such a diverse set of experiences and abilities.
I mean, it makes sense. Not everyone was a gymnast as a kid or whatever,
Exactly. Like, think about their coordination, their fundamental motor skills, their sense of where their body is in space, which we call proprioception.
Oh, proprioception.
And even their vestibular function, which is that system in your inner ear that helps you orient yourself, like knowing which way is up and maintaining your balance. And all of these things can vary so much from person to person.
Yeah, and the source actually gave some really concrete examples of that, like developmental coordination disorder.
Yeah, DCB.
And even just kids who weren't super active growing up, they might not have developed those fundamental cross-lateral patterns we were just talking about.
Right. They haven't had the same opportunities to practice and refine those movements. And then, you factor in age, past injuries, maybe even conditions you're born with. All of these can impact your proprioception and vestibular function.
This is a really individual thing.
It really is. And
Yeah.
what's fascinating is it's not just the physical body. right? Your cognitive abilities, like how well you can focus your attention, your executive function, which is like planning and organizing,
Mhm.
your processing speed, all of that plays a role in balance, especially when you're trying to do more than one thing at once.
Right, that multitasking thing, like walking and talking on the phone.
Yes, exactly. And there's some interesting research suggesting that actually training your cognitive skills alongside physical exercise can improve balance.
Oh, so like brain training along with your workout. That's cool.
It is. But the main takeaway here is that if you start with this assumption that everyone has the same baseline abilities, any exercise plan that's claiming to be one size fits all is just not going to work for a lot of people.
It just makes so much sense, like everyone's different and their workout plan should be too.
Exactly. And that's where personalization comes in, right? Taking the time to understand where someone is starting from, what their needs are, and designing interventions that are tailored to them.
Okay, so personalized approach. Got it. Now, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people, even when they know they should do it, they often kind of push it aside. Warm-ups and cool-downs.
Oh, totally. One of your sources really hit the nail on the head with this one.
It's like, why is there that disconnect? People know they should do it, but so many people just skip them.
Right. Why do we do that?
Mm.
Well, there are a few reasons. Time is a big one. People feel rushed. They think, oh, this is the easiest part to cut out.
Sure, just squeeze in the workout.
Exactly. But also, they might not fully understand the physiological benefits. It's not just about stretching a little. It's about preparing your body for the specific demands of the workout you're about to do, and then helping it recover properly afterward.
It's about priming your body and then letting it come down gently.
Exactly. And sometimes, they can be a bit boring or repetitive, especially if you don't really know what you should be doing.
Right, I can see that.
And, some fitness cultures really emphasize that high-intensity workout, so much so that the prep and recovery phases get lost. Plus, some people, they might be pretty fit, and they think they're already warmed up from their daily activities.
Yeah, like, I walked around my house, I'm good.
Right. But the source made a really important point, which is that the consequences of skipping these, they can be pretty significant.
Oh, for sure. It's not just about feeling a little stiff the next day.
No, not at all. Neglecting your warm-up, it increases your risk of injuries so much. Muscle strains, ligament sprains, even tears.
Oh,
A
wow.
proper warm-up, it increases blood flow to your muscles, raises your core temperature, gets your nervous system ready for activities, like gently revving an engine before you put it into gear.
A good analogy. I like that. And what about the cool down? What happens if you skip that?
Well, you're more likely to be sore and stiff the next day. It can hinder that removal of metabolic byproducts that build up during exercise, which slows down your recovery.
Oh, right.
There's even a cardiovascular aspect. Starting intense exercise without a gradual warm-up can stress your heart, and stopping abruptly without a cool down can sometimes cause blood to pool in your legs.
Okay, so really important stuff. It's not just an optional add-on. It's essential for safety and effectiveness.
Exactly. And I think finding ways to make them more engaging, like maybe some dynamic stretches in your warm-up, or incorporating mindfulness into your cool down, and really educating people on the why, that can make a big difference in whether they actually do them.
Yeah, make it fun. Make it meaningful. I like that. Okay, let's move on to something that I thought was a really interesting take, especially for people who are just starting out. This idea of focusing on activities that really boost your mood. One of your sources specifically recommended beginning with movements that make you feel good.
Oh, that's a fantastic point. And it's all about the psychological aspect of movement. When you start with activities that you actually enjoy, you're building positive associations with exercise right from the get-go.
It takes away that, ugh, I have to work out feeling.
Right. It's not a chore. It's not an obligation. It becomes something that you look forward to.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel good during and after.
So it's like setting yourself up for success, right?
Exactly. And it feeds into your mental and emotional well-being. Exercise releases endorphins, which have those mood-lifting effects. It's a great way to relieve stress, reduce anxiety, even improve your self-esteem.
So it's good for your body and your mind. It's win-win.
Absolutely. And your source gave some really practical examples, too.
Yeah, like dancing.
Yes. Dancing to music you love, going for a walk in nature, swimming, doing yoga or tai chi, maybe even joining a group fitness class where you get that social interaction, too.
It's about finding what you love, what gets you moving and feeling good.
Exactly. And the key thing to remember is it's so individual. What one person finds enjoyable might not be for another. So it's all about encouraging people to experiment, listen to their bodies, and find what truly resonates with them.
I love that. It's about finding your own joy in movement.
Wow.
Now, this next concept I found really fascinating. The idea of movement schemas as this kind of hidden tool for learning balance and other movement skills. Can you break that down for us in simple terms? What exactly is a movement schema?
So think of a schema as a mental blueprint, a set of rules that your brain uses to control a specific movement. With balance, for example, it's not just one single skill, it's this whole repertoire of abilities. Being able to stand still, adjust your posture when you move, react quickly when you get bumped off balance.
Like all those little adjustments we make without even thinking about it.
Yes, exactly. So a well-developed balance schema, it includes all the different strategies your body can use to stay upright. Subtly shifting your weight, using your arms for counterbalance, adjusting your posture, even integrating all that information coming in from your eyes, inner ear, and that sense of where your body is in space.
Proprioception.
Yes, proprioception.
So it's like your brain has this whole library of ways to keep you balanced.
Exactly. And it's the same idea with those more basic movements like running, jumping.
Right, it's not just one thing.
No, it's actually these complex patterns of muscle activation and coordination. A strong schema allows you to adapt those movements, run faster, jump higher, change direction quickly, depending on the situation.
So it's about having options, being adaptable.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Now, is there like scientific evidence to support this whole idea of developing movement schemas?
Oh, absolutely. The field of motor learning has shown that building these schemas through practice and experiencing variations of movement is crucial for getting better and being more adaptable. Our brains are incredibly adaptable, right?
Right, neuroplasticity.
Exactly. So as we practice and encounter challenges, those neural connections in our brains that relate to those skills get stronger, more efficient, and we develop a more detailed and adaptable schema.
So our brains are constantly learning and adapting, even when we're talking about movement.
Exactly. And dynamic systems theory also supports this, emphasizing how we adapt our movements based on the demands of our environment, which is constantly changing.
It's so cool how the brain works. So how do we actually apply this? What does this mean for, someone listening who wants to improve their movement skills?
Well, it suggests that varied practice is key. Instead of trying to perfectly repeat one correct way of doing something, you should try out different variations.
So don't just stick to the same routine.
Right. Challenge yourself with tasks that require you to adjust, to adapt.
Keep your brain guessing.
Exactly. And think about incorporating activities that engage multiple senses.
Oh, like balancing while also looking at a target or something.
Exactly. And remember, everyone learns at their own pace, in their own way. So
Yeah.
tailoring the challenge to your abilities and gradually progressing is essential. And really fostering that intrinsic motivation, making it enjoyable, that's huge.
So it's not about robotic repetition. It's about mindful exploration and having fun with movement. I love that.
It is. And I think that leads nicely into this broader issue that one of your sources touched on. It's about the tendency in the fitness industry to really focus on performance and achieving a certain aesthetic, sometimes at the expense of overall health.
Yeah, like that pressure to look a certain way or hit certain numbers. It can be a lot.
It can. And the source pointed out some potential downsides to that approach. First, it can lead to an increased risk of injuries. If you're constantly pushing harder, lifting heavier, going faster, without focusing on proper form, flexibility, recovery.
Right, your body can only handle so much.
Exactly. Second, it can sometimes neglect those other foundational aspects of health-related fitness.
Yeah.
Your cardiovascular health, basic flexibility, things like that.
So it's like focusing on one tree and missing the whole forest.
Yes, exactly. And third, those really intense training regimes and restrictive diets, they can be so hard to maintain long-term. It leads to burnout, potentially other health issues.
So it's like chasing a specific outcome without building that solid, sustainable foundation of overall well-being.
Exactly. And that's what health-related fitness is really all about. Cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength and endurance, flexibility, healthy body composition. That's the bedrock. It helps prevent chronic diseases, supports mental and emotional health too.
So it's about finding that balance where performance or aesthetic goals aren't the only drivers, but part of a bigger picture.
Right. It's about a more holistic approach that prioritizes your long-term health and well-being. Thinking about all the different facets of health-related fitness and designing programs that address those needs in a balanced and sustainable way.
I like that, a balanced approach. Okay, now this next point, I think it's something a lot of us can relate to. One of your sources brought up how we often only start paying attention to our bodies when something's wrong, when we're injured or sick. It's this reactive approach.
It's so true, isn't it? We almost take our physical health for granted until something forces us to pay attention. And the source was really advocating for a shift toward a more proactive way of engaging with our bodies.
Being proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly. It's about education, building awareness before an injury happens.
So what kind of proactive steps did the source suggest?
Well, first, cultivating body awareness. Really tuning in to how your body moves and feels, through things like proprioceptive exercises, or even just learning some basic anatomy.
Okay, so understanding your body better.
Yeah. And then emphasizing preventative measures like consistent warm-ups, stretching, strength training, understanding basic biomechanics.
Biomechanics, how your body moves effectively.
Exactly. And also demystifying injury management. Knowing the basics like rice rest, ice, compression, elevation for acute injuries. Knowing when to seek professional help.
Right, being prepared.
And then really promoting this holistic view. Recognizing that your physical health is connected to your mental and emotional well-being, and understanding the impact of things like stress management, sleep, and nutrition.
So it's about empowering people to be more informed and more in tune with their bodies.
Exactly. It's about prevention. Knowledge is power.
So when we look at all these different ideas, it seems like the main takeaway is the importance of a personalized, integrated approach to movement.
I think that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah.
We've talked about how crucial it is to consider your own starting point, find those mood-boosting activities that you actually enjoy, understand the value of proper preparation and recovery, and build that flexible movement schema by incorporating a variety of movements and challenges.
So for you, the listener, take a moment to reflect on your own baseline. What kind of movement feels good to you? Are you consistently warming up and cooling down? How could you bring more variety into your routine to build that more resilient, adaptable movement schema?
Exactly. Movement isn't just about achieving a certain goal or looking a certain way. It's about your health, your well-being, your ability to move through your daily life with ease and joy.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, those key insights are really clear. Integrated movement is the foundation. Everyone's starting point is different. Those warm-ups and cool-downs are non-negotiable. Enjoyment fuels consistency. Understanding movement principles enhances learning. And a holistic view of fitness prioritizes long-term health.
And this brings us to a final thought to leave you with. Considering all these interconnected elements we've discussed, what's one small integrated movement you could incorporate into your daily routine, something you might have overlooked? Maybe some gentle cross-body stretches while your coffee brews, or taking a minute to focus on your breath, engage your core. Just something small but meaningful.
That's a great challenge. And that concludes our deep dive for today. We hope this is giving you some valuable insights, and we encourage you to continue exploring the world of movement and well-being.
It's a fascinating journey. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.